Learning more about some of the famous people in our society has really changed my perspective on how I go about treating autoimmunity and ADHD. And I think it's important for you because when I looked at this was one of the big pieces that I was missing in my care. So I just wanted to share it with you. Ultimately, like I said, we're going to dive into what I learned, why it's important, and how you can use it to change your perspective on your health. I'm Dr. Jeff Cumro, and over the past 15 years, I've had the pleasure of working with thousands of people. And ultimately, what we do in our clinic is we work to optimize the hardware, the brain. We work to optimize the software, the energy systems, so that when we get put into any environment, whether that's a learning environment or a stressful situation or a state of relaxation, we can pull the resources we need and basically restore health and stay in that state of health for a longer period of time. So it was actually Warren Buffett is who I was reading about when I got this insight, and it totally changed how I approached my autoimmunity. So when I was 23 years old, I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and it was kind of a scary time for me. I thought for sure that I had cancer because over the course of a 3-week period, I lost 20 pounds. I was a personal trainer at the time, so I was in great shape. I couldn't run around a 100-meter track without just stopping and gasping for breath. It was a rough time, and it explained a lot of things. I had problems for an extended period of time before that, but I didn't know what I had going on, and it wasn't bad enough that I realized I had anything going on. So what I was reading is it was talking about Warren Buffett, and he was talking about who he is and why he became the person that he became. And he was telling the story of one of the people that he went to college with, and he said this person was, smarter than him and worked just as hard as him and all these other things. But coming out of college, Warren Buffett got a job with his mentor, his Benjamin Graham, the person that he admired the most, and he learned how to do value-based assessment and investing. And this other guy went and he made more money off the bat. And they said both of them did really well. I mean, the other guy is a multimillionaire, so it's not like he's struggling or anything like that. But Warren Buffett became Warren Buffett because he went and got the education, the foundation, and all of these different things. And I don't know what led me to this, but it made me look at what the foundation of my health was. And that's something I hadn't really looked at. If we look at Warren Buffett's fortune, it's easy to look back and say, the reason he's rich is over the past 20 years, he's done this and this and this. But that's not the reason that Warren Buffett was rich, right? Warren Buffett was rich before that, but he's become exponentially, ultra wealthy in that period of time because he had the foundation in place. He had the education. He had the bets that were the ones that he knew were valuable investments, the ones that have been the base of his portfolio for that entire period of time. And that got me thinking. He's like, what is my base for health, and where was it when I started? Did I have as strong of a foundation as I should have, or did I push past something? And this is something that I have looked at on other people in our clinic, and it seems to be a pattern that a lot of times people get a little, and I don't want to say that they have a choice on this necessarily, but they get a little rushed in their development. You see in ADHD, you see in autoimmunity, you see in autism, in dyslexia, things like that. There are missed stages of development. A stereotypical example of this would be in autism. You see the speech regression. They may be progressing just fine on speech, and then they get to a certain age and they don't speak anymore. There's that regression. They don't progress the way that they're supposed to. They don't have the underlying foundation to support all of that stuff. And so I looked at my health in a totally different way. And in mine, there were some developmental aspects to it. There were some metabolic aspects to it. There were some, just the way I was approaching my health with my diet and my exercise and different things like that were leading me down a path that I didn't really want to go. And it's easy to look at the last 5 years of my health and say, this is something that I did that led me to autoimmunity. In my example here would be, in that period of time, I had, like I said, I had symptoms that were leading up to this. My memory was always one of my strongest suits. It continues to be to this day. But there was a period through college that I couldn't remember anything. Through that stretch where I lost a bunch of weight, I would drive home and I didn't remember the drive home. I don't know if I stopped at red lights. I don't know if I sped. I don't know anything I did on that drive home, it was just freaky and scary all at the same time. You know, I never got stopped. I never got into an accident. So I assumed that I drove just fine through that period, but I had no recollection of it. My memory was that bad at times. I would read a page in my textbook, you know, whatever I was studying, and I would get to the bottom and realize I didn't pay any attention to that. So I'd have to go back to the top and read it again. And as I started to look at this, I looked at the rest of my family and I saw other patterns that they had. They didn't have autoimmunity. You know, my mother had autoimmunity as well, but you know, for the most, not all of them had the autoimmunity, but they had some of these traits that I had that were clues to me. And ultimately, what I'm encouraging you to do is look further back in your history. Maybe not, you know, to the developmental stages. You might not be capable of doing that, but you could find somebody who could do that for you, and that's a great place to start, because you have to have the hardware working. If you don't have the hardware to run the system, it doesn't matter. But then we also have to look at the software. We have to be able to make the energy, so that metabolic side is very, very important. Maybe the way that you're going about it. Through that period of time, I had a lot of stress. You know, I was trying to work. Well, I graduated college in that period of time, and I didn't have a full-time job yet, so I was working, you know, between 4 and 7 part-time jobs. Some of those were just, you know, go when you have time. 3 of them were consistent, you know, you show up at this set time and go from there. And so I was putting in, you know, 70 to 90 hours a week, and it was just too much. And that's ultimately what I thought caused my autoimmunity. That period of stress is what caused my autoimmunity. But I wasn't looking deep enough. I wasn't looking far enough back in the past. And that's what I want to encourage you to do, is look at some of your old labs. When I pulled out my old labs, I had thyroid issues showing up 4 years before that, but nobody ever told me that. My doctors didn't ever say anything about it. So I had no idea that I had thyroid issues back then. I could have addressed them before they became a big problem, before they impacted my health like that. But I look at that as a gift, because if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't be able to share that with other people, right? So it's kind of one of those things where it's a blessing and a curse all at the same time. It's easy to look back and say, I wish I didn't have to go through that. But that is what made me who I am, and that's what helps me do what I do for other people. So there are good things that can come from this, but look back at your old lab work. Look at the foundations. What are your core beliefs on health? How are you eating? How are you sleeping? How much water are you drinking? What are you doing throughout the day? How can you move that forward? And ultimately, I want to encourage you to find somebody who can look at your health in a broader perspective, not just from these are the stereotypical labs that we do every time, but from a perspective of what do you need? What is most likely to be your problem? How did your brain develop? What can we do to bring that along? How is your metabolism functioning? What can we do to bring that along? And when we can put this whole picture together, autoimmunity, ADHD, it doesn't matter what you're facing, heart disease, whatever it is, a lot of these diseases, they don't just show up at a certain point in time, and it's just because of the last 2 or 3 years. Just like Warren Buffett didn't get rich after the last 2 or 3 years. He got rich over a lifetime. Same thing, your health is developed over a lifetime. What can we do to restore that? What can we do to get that back? That's the question I want you to ask, and encourage you to look further back to the foundations of where you were. What can we do to change that? So I hope that this is helpful. If it is, a like and a subscribe really gives me good information as far as what you find beneficial and what I can share more of. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. I know those are your most valuable resources, and I will look forward to spending a little time with you again next week.